What happens when a meta discourse becomes a meta discourse? Are blue jeans really all they're cracked up to be? And finally, is the United States just a wax museum of the old world? All these questions we will explore and more on today's episode of the Virtue Signal podcast with your host, Dr. Eleanor Russell.
Thank you for the intro, Taylor Meanswell. And hello, Andre Kello.
Oh, hello.
I'm so excited to talk about this text, this kind of fun, psychedelic in a way, 1975 Umberto Eco essay, Travels in Hyperreality. I think it is so weird to read a philosopher of his just talk about Dolly Parton. It was really weird. It felt very contemporary to me. I really enjoy it. I think he's a really good writer. And I wanted to explore sort of one thing that's been a common theme throughout this podcast so far is we're interested in performance, and we're interested in what performance means and looks like in a contemporary age and what the pitfalls are for and by that. So yeah, let's talk about...
Now this guy's Italian, right?
He is Italian. His name is Umberto Eco. He was kind of a public intellectual philosopher. He also wrote 2 novels. I've only read one. I read The Name of the Rose, which is actually, honestly, one of the best mystery novels of all time. I really think so. It's really, really good.
They were really hyping that book up when I was reading about this gentleman.
It's so good. It's like a page turner. It's so good. And then they made a movie of it that's very weird with Christian Slater and Sean Connery, which is fun. But anyway, so we talked about Travels in Hyperreality. I normally am very recalcitrant and weird about when Europeans start talking shit about America, especially the English. The English are not allowed to talk shit about America because they invented us.
The English, no. Certainly not.
But I think I'm kind of okay with the Italians doing it, I guess. And he does go off, he is right. You know what I mean?
Well, and he talks about America only in the context of the old world and of Europe.
Yeah, that's true.
As well,
Yeah. He contextualizes it really well.
He acknowledges the cousinhood.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I know Andre is a big fan of this book and has taught it multiple times. What do you think is so interesting about it, Andre?
Well, the concept of hyperreality is important for people to understand, but difficult to define or even describe. Mm-hmm. And also, it's important to understand the difference between hyperreality and the spectacle. Mm-hmm. Hyperreality, for me, the big value of describing and discussing hyperreality is in understanding media better, especially the movies. Mm-hmm. Because, we're surrounded by hyperreality, as he, points out. But I think that the thing that people interact with that is the most hyperreal, face-to-face, on a regular basis is when people go to the movies. Very little is as hyper-real as, a giant screen. And you've got your snacks, and you're, not talking to the person sitting next to you.
Right. It's a community without community.
Hyper-reality and the cinema, they have a complicated and interesting relationship. And I think that understanding how hyperreality works in contemporary cinema is the key to understanding contemporary cinema.
Let's take a step back if we can.
Sure. Yeah.
When you're talking about hyperreality in the context of the cinema, what is the hyperreal? Is it the cinema, it's the movie itself and Les Rendezvous d'Anna and everything that happens on it? Or is it, like you said, the kind of odd social contract where we all sit in this room, face the same direction in the dark and don't acknowledge each other? Which part is the hyperreality? Is it both?
I think that's a good question because I think it is both. I think that it's both, hyperreality is both a theory of an experience and also a theory of an institution and a system of thought.
All right, tell me, what is hyperreality?
Ooh.
You read the book, tell me.
Could we start with reality?
Okay.
I know that might be a bigger can of worms, but
Okay, yeah, let's start with reality.
Okay. So we're going to start with mimesis.
Yes. Mimesis, or representation, or how something is known and seen and experienced and evidenced. Hyperreality is that, but it's really, really fast. No, it's not. It's reality, but sort of ballooned outside of itself, and so it becomes all encompassing, I think. Does that make sense?
But it's different. It's not the exact same thing as maximalism.
No, it's not. What's kind of interesting about this is that hyperreality is both an incredibly complicated idea, but also he uses the idea itself, Echo does, to critique the imagination that made it possible as being kind of impoverished. Like, he seems to think Americans are like tiny little babies who like have to like keep making fakes of authenticities in order to like live because we can't handle it otherwise. You know what I mean? Like, it seems like very much like, I kind of, when I was reading it, it kind of felt like a very prescient critique of Ezra Klein and like abundance bullshit, and how that's like, okay, so you give resources, but like, what are you going to do with it? Like, we have to have a broader ideology. There needs to be something that we want and care for. You know what I mean?
Yeah, consumerism can't solve our problems.
Right.
Like, just giving people the ability to spend more and get more stuff does not solve the problem of the fact that our lives are bad.
Yes, exactly.
So to contextualize this within the actual book itself, dear listener, the first half of it easily, and probably a little bit more of it, is Umberto Eco's, I don't want to reduce it to that of a travel log, but he uses his road trips throughout the various spectacles of the United States, particularly in California and Florida, to make a comment about reality and the way that things go from, just like the rock next to a pond as we see them, to like, and you guys know these words more than me, but like it becomes like an extra thing until now you've recreated what's real in the form of Disney World.
Exactly. I was thinking about this book a lot actually when yesterday Andre and I went to the Music Box to watch Looney Tunes. They had a free festival of Looney Tunes cartoons, and we went with Jean-Jacques. No, we didn't get a babysitter and then go. And they had, at the same time, there was like the Southport Arts Festival happening, and the words Andre said were, makes Santa Fe look like the fucking Louvre. So, like, just the worst art you've ever seen in your life. And it made me think about...
The Louvre comes up in this book, actually.
It does, but, like, there's a part on page 19 where he says, beside each statue, there is the original, quote-unquote, painting. But here, too, it is not a photographic reproduction, but a very cheap oil copy, like a sidewalk artist's. And once again, the copy seems more convincing than the model, as the visitor is convinced that the palace itself replaces and improves on the National Gallery or the Prado. So there's this cheapness.
So is that what hyperreality is, then? When you go to the Epcot version?
I think so. Yeah, I think.
So Las Vegas is the place. In Las Vegas, you have New York, the casino, where you can have the experience of walking into what appears to be an airplane hangar filled with the sets used to shoot TV shows that are in New York.
Right. Like, there used to be this Burger King on Knickerbocker in Bushwick, I don't know if it's still there, that had, for some reason, just like all these pictures of Hollywood stars like all over the walls.
I remember that.
And it
Burger King.
I was like, wait, so are they saying that like Frank Sinatra and Marilyn Monroe went to this Burger King? Or is like, I couldn't figure out what why? Like, are they all New Yorkers? No, there's like Ronald Reagan. There's like all these people. It's so weird.
Okay, but there's a thing. Okay, this is every pizza place in New York City has framed pictures on the walls of the celebrities who have come in and gotten a slice of pizza there, right? And it's usually somebody like odd.
It's always Penn Jillette.
I saw there's Leo at the DeFara.
You get a strange assortment of folks on these walls. But the point of it is not, hey, look, a famous person came here. Isn't that interesting? Or like, our pizza's so good, even Naomi Watts wants to eat it, right? In fact, what's going on is you go in and it's shitty, but there's a picture on the wall that indicates Al Pacino likes it.
Yeah.
So it reminds you, you're in New York City, everything is covered in rat feces, but that's what you like about it.
Right. There's the vibe of the authentic.
There's a line that Spalding Gray's character says in True Stories, where he tells a kind of fun little fake myth about the creation of the earth. And he says that the last place that God made on the last day of creation was West Texas. And he made it all flat. And then he was tired, so he came back the next morning to finish it and put in trees and stuff, but the ground was too hard, so he couldn't put in any trees, so it was all just flat and empty. And so he thought, I know what I'll do. I'll make people who like it this way, right? And that's what Americans are. We are people who like it this way.
Yeah. And
And-
that's the imagination that policing, or that impoverishment that I'm talking about. Yeah.
That's why the Burger King has a picture of Marilyn Monroe. It's to remind you, hey, this sucks, but remember, you like it this way.
I remember one time I was babysitting for this family, and they were friends with Liam Neeson, and they were in a car. They were like, "Oh, Liam Neeson's driver can give you a ride home to your apartment." And so I was like, I can't believe. So I got in Liam Neeson's car. He wasn't there. It was just like a driver driving people around, and he drove me to like my apartment. And it had one of those like window things where it was closed in the back, so I farted in Liam Neeson's car. And it was kind of a hyper-real situation, I think, in the sense that it's like, I get paid $17 an hour, and I guess I don't have to take the subway home, so I guess that's kind of nice. But like, they're like, here's a little, your life's not going to get any better, but here's a nice little treat. Get in Liam Neeson's car, fart in it if you want to. Yeah.
Now, what's Liam Neeson's livery?
It was just like it was just a regular
Lincoln?
black car. Yeah.
Suburban something.
It was fine. Yeah. It was really weird. I also think I was thinking a lot about children's museums when I was reading this, because children's museums are like little simulacrums of like real environments, like grocery stores or like, dress up stuff, you know what I mean? To like teach little babies how to be Americans.
Well, then let's get into the upshot of hyperreality, which is that it is bad. I think that's fair to say. He cites, we could talk about marketing, of course, but he cites nostalgia, I guess, broadly as a category. He doesn't use that word, but he cites nostalgia as being kind of inherently reactionary.
Yeah,
and this is a very prescient, as we like to say on the show.
We love that word.
Thing for our moment, right? As we see efforts to make the country great again, or to make the ingredients in food simpler and more wholesome, right? We understand that we're actually trying to recreate something that never was.
Right. Like every Trump, like, how Trump always writes on True Social, these like little obituaries when anybody dies, and they're always like about him and not really about the person. Those also feel kind of hyper real to me, because they're like this effort to rewrite a script for something that whenever was really real or relevant, in order to like memorialize it. But like, you're memorializing yourself.
Well, the way that we treat death, I think, maybe going back a very long time, has been more or less the origin of the hyperreal.
Yeah.
Because the way that we like take the dead person and we kind of create this sort of false life for the funeral. We embalm the body and put makeup on and put them in an outfit and put a big poster of their face, and we have all these people come up and talk about the person and how much they loved them. And it is a kind of like, if you were to do an event that was like a hyperreal version of a person being a person, it would be a funeral.
Yeah. It can remind me a little bit of Black Mirror in some ways. I feel like the only way you can really talk about the hyperreality in the like an artistic way is to satirize it. There's like really no other way to deal with it.
Is Trump a hyperreal president? When I think of that image of like a camera looking in through outside the White House lawn through the Oval Office.
Yeah,
and it's like a Fox TV camera, and then he's watching himself like on that camera.
Every president, more or less, since Franklin Delano Roosevelt has been hyperreal. These are in the extent to which they exist almost exclusively as media representation of them and not as a person.
The book and series of American Gods by Neil Gaiman is kind of about hyperreality. It's this sort of like the American gods. There's like media is a god, and then there's like the goddess of sex, and like they're all just like these constellations of like totems. Right? They don't really actually mean anything. They're just there so we can locate ourselves within marketing and capitalism.
So help me out. I'm a lowly plebe. I'm starting from the real. Like, I'm born, I live my life, and like somebody I care about dies, and they had a recipe nobody else has, and my city changes, and the things that young people are listening to become less familiar to me over time. And so I create this hyper real world. Sorry about my ice rattling. I create this sort of hyper real world for myself when I look back at all the things that have changed and gone away in my life, and I say, there was a past and it was better.
Yeah, it's very similar to like Roland Barthes' mythologies too. Like it's all just mythologies all the way down.
Well, I think that there are a few things that are concepts that are the product of different kinds of postmodern like strategies. There's the spectacle, and there's Lacan's concept of the fantasy, right? And then there's the hyperreal. And what all of these things are attempting to make sense of is this relationship that we have to our life that is a kind of like post-Platonism, right? We are, starting probably around the beginning of the 20th century, though I think, we've discussed the ways in which in the 19th century there is the beginnings of this. There is this move toward all life in the West, at least, being replaced with a simulacrum. Right? We discussed this with Kate on the Backrooms episode. So I think what the hyperreal is, as opposed to all of these other ways of like making sense of this post-Platonic world, is that the hyperreal is creating a way of understanding the scale of contemporary life as being like contiguous with prior scale, right? These like cathedrals are hyperreal,
Yeah.
right? It gives
How?
you,
Why?
because they're so big that you can't comprehend them. They're spectacular, right, which makes them part of the spectacle. But they are also hyperreal because we understand what a building is. We might even understand what a church is. But you are face to face with a cathedral, and every element of the way in which you perceive it is pushed to its limit. It's as big as you can make a building at the time. It's the sound of being inside of one is unique, right? The reverberation, the echo.
To tie back to last week's episode, I do think that a lot of the stand-up comedy that I'm attracted to, that I'm interested in, is constituted by the comic trying to reconcile their experience of hyperreality. Like, that's what I was saying about John Mulaney being like, isn't it crazy that I look like this when I feel like this? That's him contending with hyperreality, I think. Pryor redescribing his overdoses and his experiences with setting himself on fire, that's him engaging with the hyperreality of a situation, which is that his life is more than just his life. It's this event that's happening to him and it's happening to other people. And how does an individual deal with that?
And stand-up comedians, I would think, are uniquely suited to articulate that.
That's exactly what I'm positing.
Right. And so in Mulaney's case, you have like, well, I'm like a clean-cut, straight white man, and yet
boy wonder,
and yet there's this profound dissonance within me. Like, the world has created this position for me to occupy that should be free of friction, and yet I have found a way to destroy my life and constantly undermine myself. And I wear the suit still to kind of like be a living illustration of that contrast.
Yes. And with Richard Pryor, it's like, okay, you think I'm a crazy black guy, I'll show you what that means and what that looks like, and it's going to be beyond anything that you could comprehend and understand yet, because you're not ready for this.
Well, and even being like a crazy black guy who's like rich and famous would introduce a level of hyperreality.
Exactly. It's very interesting. And then there are people who contend with that hyperreality in ways that are conservative, and there are people who contend with it in ways that are really interesting and revelatory,
Robbie Hoffman. For the former.
Now, wait a second. Now, did anybody go to see John Mulaney perform at Wrigley Field last night?
That's right.
Your son opened for him, I thought.
Yeah.
I couldn't go, but we put him in the lift, and then he was in the lift that
Liam
night.
Neeson actually was there, and he took him home in his car.
It was Liam Neeson. It still smelled like your fart.
It still smelled like my fart from 2013. Yeah,
I think performing stand-up in Wrigley Field would be a good way of describing what the hyperreal is.
especially John Mulaney, like being from Chicago and stuff like that. Yeah.
I'm sure he picked the venue because it was the craziest idea he could think of.
What if I performed at Wrigley Field?
Right, like he's
Yeah.
not performing at Dodger Stadium. He's not performing at the Hollywood Bowl. He's performing at Wrigley Field. Now,
Yeah.
Wrigley Field is a place that exists in his, personal brain mythology because of him growing up in Chicago.
Yeah, and also like the Wrigley vilification of various neighborhoods throughout the city is really interesting. I would like to posit actually a synonym for hyperreality, which is Wrigleyville and Wrigley vilification.
The Wrigley vilification. He talks about Wrigleyvilles, etc.
Yes.
in the book. I can't remember the name that he uses for the model towns or something like that.
Yeah, he also talks about San Luis Obispo, which is where my mom lived for a while and is the place that I immediately thought of when I first heard of the concept of hyperreality.
Levittown is a kind of hyperreal place, right? Like the whole concept of suburbia as being a version of a place for human beings to live that is not reflective of how human beings live.
So cults are hyperreal.
I think cults employ hyperreality in order to, get their constituents to let go of the idea that they live in the real world.
Right. We'd have to be careful and not say that like every intentional community is hyperreal because that's just not the case.
But it sounds the common thread I'm hearing in this definition we're developing of hyperreality is a dissonance or a distance or a contradiction.
There's a friction with itself. It's like it's presenting the world as frictionless, and in so doing you introduce friction. It's like reminding it's like putting a painting inside of a painting, or like reminding the audience that they're reading a book.
Well, it's sort of the opposite of the back rooms because it's like
I can't decide if I think it's the opposite or the same thing as the back.
what the hyperreal says is that there's nothing under the surface. That what you see is what you get, and the spectacle is your life.
Right, but I want to use a line that I wrote in my dissertation that says, I want us to think the fathomless of certain surfaces. There are surfaces sometimes that are so complicated that, like, to even describe them, I think this is what he's trying to do here, is he's trying to describe a really complicated surface. Yeah, that's what I wanted to say about surfaces. So in that sense, it is a back room because... Another thing about the back rooms is like there's so much like material there. It felt very physical and tangible and ambient and
Well, yeah, because every part of it that's supposed to not really exist but only exist as sensation
Yes.
is like suddenly made real, reified by its physical qualities. Like, say, for example, a carpet that becomes moldy and mildewed because it's old and neglected, and everything is faded because it has interacted with, like cleaning solvents or sunlight or whatever that has caused it to fade, right? The room has a pile of furniture. It has too many chairs. It had everything that was supposed to like be this, convincing argument that you don't need to spend time looking underneath in order to understand. It has been subverted with the reality of the physical material, which has begun to degrade and then present you with the important information that you need to have about how it works, right? The fact that there's black mold, the fact that the door doesn't open, or maybe it stays open and swings open, or, the things fall apart. The center cannot hold, right? That's the back rooms, right? The mall is shutting down, right? The place that was built more or less to convince people in the suburbs that life was okay has been closed and replaced with nothing.
Yeah. You can't, yeah. It's in that sense, a hyperreality is something that things can only happen to. It can't like create anything new.
And for that reason, it's constantly in crisis.
Yes, exactly. Because that's, again, the center cannot hold. Yeah. I want to think more about Wrigleyville and John Laney performing at Wrigleyville last night, because that is crazy and worth attending to. I wish I knew what the material was or what he talked about. I also want to talk about the history of Wrigleyville too, because like when I was a kid, Wrigleyville was like a shithole. It sucked. There was like a fucking gas station.
No, but they've torn everything down and replaced it with Vegas versions of the old stuff.
And it's so weird because my father was like a huge Cubs fan, was like, oh, Wrigley Field is holy ground, because he's remembering Wrigley Field from when he was a child in the 50s and 60s, where it was this sort of like great American institution where people were coming together in pro-social ways, or maybe not.
Like a monument to the people of Chicago.
Exactly.
Like when you see it in the opening titles of Perfect Strangers, right? It's not standing in for spectacle. It's standing in for the love that these people have for their community.
So like when I would be in Wrigleyville with my dad, like even recently in the past few years, he'd be like, oh, I always get chills whenever I'm here, because he still feels like that. He still feels like he's 10 years old watching the Cubs play, or he's felt that way. And so I think it's like, I'm like, really? Because like I'm here and I feel awful. I hate this place. Like, it's so terrible. Every like restaurant is like incredibly expensive and bad.
Well, one of the things about the hyper-real is that you don't like it.
Yeah, that's true.
Because you have like a sensitivity to when there's too much stuff going on.
Yeah, I also don't like bullshit. That's a thing.
And so then the hyper-real is really not for you.
Yeah, no. Another thing on the show that's not for me.
Now, it sounds to me like there are parallel, perhaps converging, diverging, I don't know what the fuck words mean. There are multiple hyper-realities. And it would seem to me, as you illustrate your and your dad's different reactions to Wrigleyville, that you are... both responding to a different hyper reality.
Yeah.
One that you don't like and that your dad does like.
Well, it's like, I mean, I remember going to Wrigley Field in the 90s and being like, oh, this is fun because I'm spending time with my family. But and now that I think maybe also because I live in the city and my dad doesn't live in the city, so he doesn't go to Wrigleyville or have to go there frequently. So like, I'm like, oh God, this sucks. Like, I'm just like so aware of it. But he's just like, he was just content to just like live within his memory palace of the Wrigley Field and like not really. And also, he was also just like a conservative guy. So he's like, yeah, it's good they're building up the place. It's good for tourism, blah, blah, blah. So I don't know. There's a kind of cynicism, I think, that you have to have in order to enjoy the hyperreal. Andre, I believe you are the only one of us who has been to Las Vegas.
I have been to Las Vegas. I went there on a work trip a few years ago. I guess it was, 2023? Mm-hmm. And it sucked. Mm-hmm. I stayed at the Park MGM. I was there for NAMM, which is the annual conference for audiovisual technology.
National Ass Men.
I didn't really spend any time at the convention because the convention itself sucked. Because it's just a bunch of people like trying to show off like compressors and stuff, like
okay,
a piece of gear that sits on a rack and it, it routes HDMI signals. Like that's the kind of thing that somebody would have a booth to show off. Okay. Right? Not interesting. I spent most of my time on that trip in my hotel room trying to write. And the hotel rooms themselves suck on purpose because they don't want you to be in the hotel room.
Yeah.
They want you to go out and spend money. But then the places where you go and, are where you're supposed to be like enjoying all the best of everything, right? Mostly those things suck. And you know what's hard to do in Vegas? Go see a movie.
That's so weird. Why?
There's a movie theater inside of a casino that's way off the strip. And like getting there was so hard.
How did you do it?
Because I didn't want to take a taxi and I didn't have a car with me. And there's very little in terms of public transit. There's like a loop that Elon Musk has that just takes people back and forth to the convention center. But if you want to go literally anywhere else, you are on your own. And so what I did was I had to like find out how to like snake my way through the lobbies of various casinos in order to get from one place to another. At one point, I was walking on a bridge, an overpass that definitely did not have a walking path, and I had to just make sure that cars didn't hit me as I was walking.
Oh God!
Just to get to a movie theater.
Yeah.
This is a place that is hostile to human beings.
Yeah, I was thinking about an alternative though, like because I was thinking about how I went to a Lego convention with Jean-Jacques last summer. And it was you went to
Brick World.
With Brick World, you would think that would be a I went to Brick World and everybody knew you. I don't know what brick means.
Listeners, she's fine. She can have that one.
Thank you. I still don't know what it means.
All
Anyway,
right, I'm making a private note of it. It's handled.
the case.
Okay. We're dealing with that in-house, listener.
and the thing is, like, I expected it to be like kind of depressing and like lame or whatever, but actually it was really joyful because it was just like a bunch of people who love Lego and like making beautiful things. And like, yeah, sometimes there's like a replica of like a really impressive replica of the Eiffel Tower. It just seems like there is like the Lego convention feels like a compensatory version of hyperreality that's like kind of positive and good, even if it is still in service of like capitalism.
You know what it does is every Lego had to have been built by somebody, and you think about it every time you see it. Mm-hmm. Right?
Yeah, exactly. Labor is involved.
It cannot, the labor can't be erased. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And not just the physical labor, but the creative labor as well.
Yeah.
You know, these are individually placed small bricks. You can't do it with a machine, right? To build something with Lego, you have to not only come up with the concept, you have to execute it.
I have a friend from college who's currently trying to pitching to Lego to make a cottage from Heated Rivalry as like a Lego set. And I was like, I don't know, what's the audience for that?
Well, Lego is the only toy that is being purchased, right? If you go to any like Target or whatever, there's like every time you go there, you're going to see fewer and fewer toys. People are having fewer kids, and the kids who are alive play video games. They don't play with toys. So the people who are purchasing toys, specifically the people who are purchasing Lego, adults.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? The toy industry as it exists is being propped up by childless adults.
Which makes me so sad. Like, did I ever tell you guys about my friend who hosted, she's a mom of toddlers, and she hosted a Bluey trivia night at a bar, and Bluey adults, no kids, won. I was so angry when I heard about this because, like, I did not go through the fucking trenches of COVID with a toddler to have some childless people win Bluey trivia. It was fucking infuriating. Sorry, I know we're supposed to be like, wave your freak flag high or whatever, but no, I don't like those people. I think that's weird and bad.
Listen, I'll get my self-cam. I'm taking the heat off Eleanor here. There is a young woman in my community who is known about town for constantly wearing a pair of Bluey ears. And I did see her at the club on Friday, leaning up against a wall, looking around expectantly for someone to talk to her, and I did not. That's all I have to say.
Good for you. Yeah, I just like, and then when like people are like, there was like something on Reddit or something where it was like, you get a Bluey tattoo and then get upset when children ask you about it. Like, what are you doing? Like, I don't know. The world is hostile to children.
I think it was probably a mistake for us to import Australian culture.
Yeah, no, that's for damn sure. Yeah.
My grievance that I just articulated was not about the Bluey ears. She's a harm overstater. It's not about the Bluey ears.
Oh, really? Okay, wait, what do you mean harm overstater? What does that mean? I think I know what it means, but I really like that term and I want you to articulate it.
You know, God help me lest I sound like I'm saying this wokeness is getting out of hand, but some people do seem eager to unperson people for in retaliation for slights against them and actual harm in some cases sometimes. But
You think mad with power?
Mad with power and completely lacking in any healthier or better model for
selfhood,
reconciliation, and like community. It turns out the young lady with Bluey ears doesn't have a whole lot of real world practical skills, and not just her, but like anybody who's kind of like discovered themselves via the internet, we'll say. That's completely unrelated. I apologize.
No, the internet is where we go for our hyper reality, right?
So we go for reality.
Well, I mean,
is there a reality anymore?
I don't know. I think you can feel it sometimes in the trees and the wind.
There is a reality. Reality exists. We know that reality exists because we see that children are still being murdered in Gaza. Those murders are not a portion of hyper reality. You know, the thing that makes that stuff feel hyper real is the torrent of disgusting images, heartbreaking images that you are exposed to in your normal daily life. But the event that produces them is real.
That's real. That's
And the
100%.
struggle is trying to hold on to that without, losing your will to live.
Yeah, well, it's like I'm really I'm really wrestling with this thing that I've been talked about a couple times, I think, on the show about like what do you do when hysteria is like the correct response to something, but like it's not like a palatable thing to experience or perform or undergo, but like it is accurate to it's requisite to the situation sometimes. Like I don't know what to do when I feel like screaming in the middle of this street because everything is fucking horrible.
Well, Echo, I think, gives us the idea that overreaction is the only appropriate reaction
Yes.
to the hyperreal. The hyperreal demands a hyper extenuated reaction.
And that's why I think Greta Thunberg pisses people off so much, is because everything she does is the correct response to a situation as it's happening in real time.
But something I think important to point out here is that what the hyperreal and the spectacle are is the thing that capital produces instead of fixing reality.
Say that again.
These non-Platonic representations or creations of the hyperreal, the spectacle, all of this stuff.
Epcot.
Fantasy, the fantasy version of life. The reason that capital keeps producing it is because capital can produce that. What capital cannot do is fix the problems of humanity.
Or fix the problems of capitalism.
We can't, provide enough food and housing and education and healthcare for everyone, right? We could without capital. But because of capitalism, we can't have those things. But what we get instead is a version of reality in which the things that capital is capable of doing compensate for what it can't do. Right? And it creates the thing that is of such a scale. We are going to give you so much entertainment. We are going to give you the sweetest possible cinnamon roll, so much that you won't remember that your children don't know how to read, or that you can't have children in the first place because nobody who's under the age of 50 has had the opportunity even to work a job that would pay enough to have children.
Yeah. I think that also hyperreality is what Slavoj Žižek would call symptoms. Like every hyperreal environment is a symptom of our condition.
Sorry.
No, don't apologize. Never apologize for making fun of Zizek. I think there's a lot of competing hyperrealities for our attention. And it also, those competing hyperrealities are coming to redefine the contours of what attention even is. So we see this with like short form content, right? In lieu of like artistic works of art, that like a Tolstoy, for example, would loathe,
Well, it's interesting you bring up Tolstoy because what we recall from his conclusion at the end of his text of what is art is that the one thing that is absolutely true as a measure of what should or should not be made as works of art or cultural production of any kind is moral responsibility for the outcomes of your actions. If you make a thing and it has a certain effect on the world, that is you, the artist's fault. Now, maybe you intended it, maybe you didn't, but you have to take responsibility for what is happening as a result of what you've done. Now, what hyperreality does is it creates an effect without a cause, right? There is no way to take moral responsibility for Wrigleyville.
Means without ends, yeah.
It is impossible for an individual to be held accountable for Las Vegas. None of this stuff can be tied to any kind of moral culpability. It exists outside of that for the same reason it exists outside of reality.
I also think it's worth mentioning that a lot of the hyperreal places we're talking about, Las Vegas, Saudi Arabia, probably Disney World, often have extremely religious devotees. Like what is going on with Mormons in Las Vegas? What's going on with like Muslim communities in Saudi Arabia? Like, what is going on with this like sort of unrepentant, constant faith in a religious doctrine as applied onto this sort of frictionless simulacrum is really weird and upsets me to think about. So that's why I think we should think about it.
If cathedrals are the first hyperreal, and maybe they are, maybe they aren't. I mean, you can go even further back and think about like the Colosseum in ancient Rome, right? The theater at Ephesus. Like, don't we imagine that seeing a theater production in Ephesus and you're looking, you know, to the west and you're seeing the sun set behind the actors as they're pretending to be gods up on this stage? Like that was 3,000 years ago. That was probably pretty hyper real. You know, and those were religious ceremonies.
Exactly. I think this is why it's worth coming back to postmodernism, as people always talk about postmodernism as like a new thing. And I actually think the postmodern, as I think I've said this before, has always existed. It's because as long as there's inside outside, there's a postmodern. And hyperreality is a postmodern phenomenon that has happened in antiquity. I'm just saying.
I was about to ask that question. It sounds like hyperreality, like modernity is not necessarily a prerequisite of hyperreality.
I do think modernity is an intensification of it, though, for sure.
Modernity is an intensification of hyperreality. Dear listener, hang in there. I'm going to make these people talk until it makes sense to me.
Well, intensity is like when we talk about the hyperreal as having a relationship to scale, right? What we mean is that it's simply so much of whatever the thing is that you can't see the other side of it. It's a thing that's a stand-in for the oceanic feeling.
It's like what bothers people about Lake Michigan. Like, it always like frustrates Jean-Jacques that he's like, but Lake Michigan, you can't see the end of it. How's that a lake? I'm like, I don't know what to tell you, kid. That's a lake. Yeah.
It's more than you can hold in your mind, which makes it feel like something that is bigger and more important than you, and therefore, you know, you can't judge it. It simply acts upon you, like the sun, right? Like, is the sun good or bad? That's a meaningless question. It's the sun. What are you going to do about it?
Well, it's kind of like depression in a sense, where it's like, when you're depressed, it doesn't really matter. Like I remember, like, sometimes I'll be depressed and I'll be like, I know that it's a beautiful day outside. I know that, like, I can smell the flowers. I know that, like, but it doesn't penetrate. Like, I don't feel it. You know what I mean? So I think that's why there's so much, like, negativity to all of this. Like, it's all just sort of destructive and...
Well, I think one of the things that the hyperreality asks you to do is not think.
You're not supposed to think, yeah.
You know, and in that way, UCB style improv is a kind of like hyper-real version of the theater, because it's a theater experience where everything is in excess and moving too quickly, and you're not supposed to think about what you say, but you act on instinct, and it produces this thing that sort of derives directly from human experience, or at least that's the concept. You know, like an actual play, you can imagine it having, like we say with Tolstoy, some sort of a causal relationship with an individual author, right? But an improv scene is made on the fly by a bunch of people, you know, working moment to moment, saying yes to everything. And that's what the hyper-real demands of us, to say yes to everything, to eliminate the critical part of the mind that makes it possible for people to, you know, like say, I don't like that your building is that color. I don't like that your music is this loud. I choose to have an aesthetic sensibility that has boundaries instead of saying yes to every single thing that is presented to me.
I do think there is, you get the sense that Umberto Eco thinks that there's like an ineffability to hyperreality as a result of Americanization and capitalism and stuff like that. But I do think he ends it on like a kind of positive note a little bit. Where
I was wanting to talk about the end of the book.
I'll read the last couple sentences. both at the same level of credibility, both at the same level of fakery. Thus, on entering his cathedrals of iconic reassurance, the visitor will remain uncertain whether his final destiny is hell or heaven, and so will consume new promises. New promises.
Yeah.
What does that mean?
Well, the person confronted with the hyperreal is confronted with a thing that by its constituent qualities is confusing. It is incomprehensible. It's too big. It's too much. It's too intense. And because of that, it turns you back into a child who has to be instructed on how to live in this new world. And that makes you helpless. It takes away your individual personal agency as somebody who is responsible for, shaping the world the way that it should be shaped. And instead you become passive. And, the thing that you are consuming is consuming you.
It's the loop. So West Texas Highway is a Mobius strip, as John Darnielle pointed out. Yeah.
So
That's the second time West Texas came up.
I bring it up because of that. Yeah.
let's say I'm a guy.
Okay.
I'm just like an American guy.
Okay.
And I just like turn on the TV, I listen to the radio. I decide I'm going to go to Disney World because that's the like ultimate leisure, like thing that you can do with your money.
You won the Super Bowl. What are you going to do? You're going to go to Disney World.
And so whatever system, consumerism, capitalism, etc., creates the conditions that make me even want to go to Disneyland in the first place, that's a hyper reality. And then I get there and I walk from Morocco to New Orleans in 5 minutes. That is another hyper realism. Am I doing something by making these two discrete things, or should it all be under one umbrella?
No, I think makes sense that like I was always saying, like if there's competing hyper realities that are competing for our attention and reshaping what we mean by attention. Yeah, so that makes a ton of sense to me.
And you would consume new promises because the hyper reality, the contradiction is inherent in the hyper reality,
yes.
right?
If you go to Disney World, you go to Epcot, right? You go there, you not just any of these places, but like I remember going to a shopping mall, and you go to a shopping mall and maybe there's stuff you want to do, but you don't know where things are. There's too many stores for you to keep it in your mind.
Like the Mall of America.
So you walk over to a map, and the map says you are here, and it's classified, and here's the stores that sell things, and here's the restaurants, and it makes it consumable because it makes it comprehensible.
That's why I like malls, but I don't like theme parks. I hate theme parks. I like water parks. I'll go to a water park, but I've never really liked theme parks because they just seem they're really overwhelming to me. And I just don't know how to behave in them. They make me feel weird.
A water park is something closer to like an amusement park. The way that, like people imagine, an amusement park is obviously still a hyper real experience, but at a fundamental level, what it is a bunch of rides. And you get on the ride, and in that way, it's just like a state fair. Yeah. Right? You get on the ride, you have your fun, you get off the ride, you leave. Right? But Disney World isn't that. Disney World is bigger than that. It's an experience. It's a world. Right? It has its own currency. It has its own app for your phone. It has a hotel that you stay at that's on the premises. It is a replacement for life on Earth. It is enclosed, like in that old Star Trek episode, where the world is hollow and I've touched the sky, right? A generation ship, a spaceship where people live over the course of several generations, right? And in that way, it has to be the entire world, all wrapped up in a big
there can't be any gaps. Yeah.
Right. It has to replace the whole thing. And when you create something that replaces all of reality, you've created hyper reality.
Yeah, because it's an excess of reality. That's what hyper reality is it's both totemic and excessive.
And this is why I think that it's so important for understanding the contemporary cinema, because like ever since the early 90s, ever since Jurassic Park, photorealistic computer generated images and compositing in movies have made it possible for the thing that you are experiencing to not be related to the world that we live in. Cinema was made with cameras, and now it is made with computers, and as a result, it no longer has a relationship to the world that we live in. The idea for what you're experiencing comes from the inside of a mind, not necessarily from an image.
And franchises exemplify this. Like, look, even the like most recent Jurassic Park movies have like no relationship to the old original Jurassic Park movies. It's a symbol with no referent.
Well, the thing that's so great about there's a lot of things that are great about the very first Jurassic Park movie, but the thing that is awesome and fun and makes it endlessly rewatchable is that it's about hyperreality breaking down.
Yeah, there's a reason it's my favorite movie of all time, actually. Jurassic Park is. It's about what happens to people when hyperreality breaks down and how it brings people together. It's about family,
Right. The thing that comes and takes the place of the hyperreal when the hyperreal is destroyed because the technology fails, because nature, gets its revenge on humanity, because, individual people and their ambitions comes back to bite them in the ass. What we replace it all with is people interacting with children, people interacting with loved ones, with romantic interests, with their parents or grandparents, people interacting with nature, right? Like, after the park falls apart and, like when they're on the ride, none of the dinosaurs show up, right? But it's once they are out of the car and in the tree, trying to survive, that they're presented face to face with these enormous dinosaurs who are suddenly magical representations of the infinite beauty of nature.
Yeah. One of my favorite scenes in the movie is when the kids are back in like the museum area and they see all the food and they realize that they're fucking starving, and they eat, like they just sit down and like eat all the food. And that was like such a moment where it's like, oh yeah, no, I'm like, I'm not just surviving. Like I have to, like, this is a moment I can actually like indulge and enjoy myself because I haven't eaten in so long.
Right. You're not a brain in a jar,
exactly.
Looking at a movie screen. Yeah. You're a human being who has blood in your veins, and you're going to eat some food because you're hungry.
You're fucking
not
starving.
Because somebody sold it to you.
Yeah, I love that. It reminds me also of the scene in A Little Princess. Taylor, have you ever seen A Little Princess? Oh my God. So there's Shirley Temple version is amazing. Also is the one from the 90s. And there's the little girl, she with her friend, they're being punished by their headmistress, and they're like, and she just invents like a feast. She's like, oh, and then we'll have like the sticky pudding, and then we'll have this, and it's like this beautiful, and like in the film, you see it, and of course it's not real. She's imagining, pretending it's there, but to me that's like the beautiful version of like mimesis and like making something creative with your mind. And like, I don't know, I think cinema is aware of hyperreality as like a contingent aspect of its existence, but there's so many directors and artists who use the medium in order to contest it too.
I want to spend some time in the Jurassic Park example, because we've been talking about hyperreality as an abstraction, right? And we've also been talking about the things that come in, the reality that comes in and disrupts the hyperreality. And I wonder what you think of, so in the Jurassic Park context, there's these, maybe you could call them modernists, but these beautiful, lofty visions of scientific progress, and we're going to recreate these extinct animals, and we're going to turn it into an amusement park so that we humans, who've like climbed to the top of life's hierarchy through our guile and ingenuity, we now can experience the world as it was before us, and it really symbolizes our domination of nature. Right? That's the hyperreality. Nature comes in and asserts itself.
Yes.
Right? And things go beyond what the humans intended for. And suddenly it goes from like, okay, we're God, to, oh, fuck,
Yeah.
there's dinosaurs trying to eat us.
And the thing is, there are people I think who believe in hyperreality longer than other people. Like, for example, it's David Attenborough, right? And he's like, if we just take control, and Laura Dern's like, you never had control, that's the illusion. Richard Attenborough, sorry. You never had control, that's the illusion. I was in awe of the power of this place, but I made mistakes too. Blah, blah, blah. Never mind. Again, my favorite movie. And so it's like, he's still, at that point, even with like the kids missing, he's like, we could still do, if we just take control. Like, he still believes that. He still has to, that's because that's the fantasy he has to live in order to like survive himself.
Well, okay, so one of the things that's in Wrigleyville is Alamo Drafthouse. Mm-hmm. And Alamo Drafthouse is a place I used to like, and now I don't go there anymore.
We complain about it every episode.
Because the people there, they decided that what they want is for everybody to be on their phone. Now, movies is church.
Movies is church, that's true.
Movies is church. And if church is where the hyperreal came from, movies is where the hyperreal is now. Or rather, it used to be. I don't think young people care about the movies. They enjoy
some
other
of them
stuff.
do. Some of them do.
But the thing that you are supposed to do in church is be, respectful, and you're supposed to venerate and worship and,
or reflect. Just
get out of yourself. Right? You're not supposed to be on your goddamn phone. Mm-hmm. If you're on your phone at church, you're not at church. You're on your phone. And if you're at the movies and you're on your phone, you're not at the movies. You're on your phone. Mm-hmm. I think that the thing that makes it upsetting to me is that if movies is church, then people who is on their phone are not doing the hyperreal. Mm-hmm. The hyperreal is the thing that you go there for. That's what Nicole Kidman is talking about.
Yeah.
The reason Heartbreak feels good in a place like this is because it's a hyper-real replication, a non-platonic simulacrum. It's a mimicry of heartbreak, which allows us to step outside of ourselves. And so, like, the hyperreal and just generally this, like, the concept of post-platonism, right? Not necessarily bad.
Yeah.
It's something we've had for a long time, and it isn't like, if we get rid of capital, we'll still have the hyperreal. Like, the Soviets had the hyperreal. The Soviets participated in the Olympics. You don't think that's hyperreal? They have the hyperreal. Capitalism's relationship to the hyperreal is capitalism's problem. It isn't a problem with simulacrum on its own.
I don't think I agree with the language framing around like being able to stand outside of oneself. I don't think that's actually what church is for. I think you're still standing, it's where you're actually really fully understanding your interiority itself by virtue of communion or awareness of the outside structure that you're now inhabiting.
So a benefit that you get is that it puts you personally in, as Kamala Harris would say, in the context of what came before.
Exactly.
The context of what's outside of you. So contextualizing yourself.
Yeah, it's not just like a myopia or a narcissism. It's like a realization of the self as like in communion, communitas, and like of the world, a being in the world, as Heidegger would say. Yeah.
But what,
or as Marx would say, a species being.
But hyper-realism as capitalist spectacle doesn't make you feel connected.
No.
It makes you feel alone. It makes me feel alone. I don't know about the listeners.
Well, Britney Spears shows us how lonely that feels.
Sure, and another person who had a bad time in Las Vegas.
I think it's easy to say that hyperreality is just like another word for like the postmodern or for pastiche or whatever, but I don't think it really is. I do actually think that Umberto Eco is defining a key category of our emotional intellectual life as postmodern subjects. And I think it holds up today, especially while I would love to know what he would have to say about streaming services.
Or the World Cup.
He does actually talk about the World Cup a little bit, and it says basically all this, like, yeah, the World Cup, hyper real, you know?
Well, and he more or
Count
less
'em.
says the same thing that you're saying in his chapter about sports. He's like, you know what, it's not for me, but I see the value.
Yeah, he also sees like the redemptive social aspect of it too. So he's I think he's remarkably even-handed actually for a philosopher.
What made this book so readable is this guy's bemusement with the things that he's criticizing.
He's not nearly as like condescending as a Tolstoy was. Remember, or Hegel. Or it's like, and he's not nearly as pessimistic as Adorno. I think
Right.
he's really trying to like figure things out together. He's not condescending. He doesn't think he's above it all.
One gets the impression that he likes the wax museums he
Yeah.
writes so much about.
Yeah, and the Ripley, Believe It or Not. I used to love Ripley, Believe It or Not when I was a kid.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I
No,
love
the
that stuff.
little cartoon, and then you go to the place.
Yeah.
I've been to the one, I think, in Los Angeles.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I think so.
You did? When did you go?
I think when I was there for a work thing.
Oh, you went. Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah, I was there for the World of Animation Summit. Yeah.
If you can, listener, leave in the comments down below terrible things for Andre to visit on work trips.
please,
Just
give
those
us
dog
a
shit
long list.
suggestions,
Yeah.
please.
Yeah.
I do think, though, that the World Cup specifically is this thing where the audience is more or less fighting against the thing that is attempting to make it hyperreal. Because the audience is constantly confronted with the difference between the story that is attempted to be told by the authority that is presenting the thing to you, and then the reality of the situation.
I was thinking about, for students, the college campus can feel like a hyperreality because it is sort of like a training for how you're supposed to like feel like
Increasingly,
world.
college campuses are designed intentionally in order to be closer to the like Disney World model.
Yeah.
Right. Like more and more of the money is going to the dorm and the
the dining hall,
and like bringing comedians and musicians to perform there.
yeah.
Right. I saw Seth Simon posted the rider that Pete Davidson had for like visiting some college campus, and one of the things on the list was $10,000 cash.
That's okay. Is that a bit? Can you do that?
I did see that.
Is that a bit like? And I need.
It certainly would be within the realm of the kind of contract and compensation that comedians get for performing on college campuses.
I just don't-
I remember 25 years ago at NYU, they were paying people like $50,000 to come for one performance.
But why is $10,000 in cash part of your rider? Isn't that just like shouldn't that be part of the payment you get for your performance? I don't understand how that's like allowed.
Maybe it's just walking around money.
$10,000.
It's only
in
$100 bills. It'll fit in your pocket.
Wow.
Yeah.
I'm taking this in. A rider is a kind of interesting item that American Studies people are really into. Like people make fun of American Studies people because we're like constantly reading like mechanic handbooks and shit like that. But like I really think a comedian's rider is a kind of funny thing because it's kind of between art. It's a legal document that's also kind of like has the capability to surprise you and be interesting, which is kind of funny. I don't know. Maybe we should do an episode about writers.
Pete Davidson's rider, I noticed, also included an XL T-shirt from the local fire department.
Yeah.
So I thought that was
Because his dad was a firefighter.
really
Right.
stupid. He's a fucking jackass weirdo.
Yeah.
And, like,
I used to really
if the
like
Saudis
him.
killed my dad, I wouldn't go dance for them.
Yeah, he is a BPD king though, and he's open about it, which I respect.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
But yeah, no, I used to really like him, and then I was like, oh no, you're as craven as everybody else. Oh well.
I think that the idea behind changing the college campus into a theme park is for the same reason that theme parks are the way that they are, which is that they are creating the opposite of what a university is supposed to do.
Mm-hmm.
A university ostensibly is supposed to educate. And when we say educate, we mean not just like rote memorization, but also teaching people how to think critically.
Mm-hmm.
The university now wants the students to never think critically because they want mostly for the students to consume.
Well, because what they're fundamentally limited by is that they think they want to believe that education is just the transference of knowledge. And that's not what education is. Education is learning how to think.
Well, in America, it has become this thing because specifically and deliberately and literally because it was about education up until the Higher Education Act in 1965, and then it became the portal to the middle class. And the only thing of value it had to offer for the vast majority of people who would go to college between 1965 and today was that it gave you the opportunity to be born in poverty, but then to enter the middle class by becoming a professional.
Yeah. And now it's such a symbolic thing.
Well, it doesn't do that anymore because human labor has, especially those bullshit jobs that those college educations were supposed to provide you, that has been replaced with computers. And so there isn't really any purpose anymore.
Right, but we still feel comforted by that fantasy. Like, I remember when Megan Thee Stallion got her, like, BA in,
Health administration.
Health administration from University of Houston, because her mom was like, no, it's really important. You know, it's like, she doesn't, that's just a symbolic thing she's doing for her mom, who believes in this prior narrative of how to, like,
the
good up in
same
the
way
world.
that so much of this country is just a bunch of, like, carousels that are spinning to entertain dying boomers.
Yeah, and Megan Thee Stallion also, her mom was a rapper. So, I don't know. Yeah. Megan Thee Stallion, I think, is an interesting entity of hyperreality. I think most socially conscious artists are interested and invested in that narrative too. Like, so sort of promoting and exemplifying hyperreality by critiquing it, which I think she does in, like, that video that I love for Thought Shit, where she's, like, the senator. Like, there's, like, this old white guy that they just, like, torture throughout the video. It's very funny. Yeah. Do we think that it is possible to critique hyperreality in making art about it, or are you always just going to reify hyperreality?
I think it's one of those, the only way to win is to not play the game type of thing. I don't know how you can make art without some form of abstraction and without positing some sort of, like, better or different world.
Yeah.
Making a movie against hyperreality is like fucking for chastity or fighting for peace.
Okay.
You know, you're using the wrong strategy.
Is there, like, the meme, like, and yet you participated in hyperreality? I am very intelligent.
Well, like the spectacle, hyperreality is way bigger than any of us, and there isn't really anywhere you can go to escape it.
Yeah, that's true.
Like when we lived for 3 years in Taos, New Mexico, one of the things about living in a place like that is that the fact of the mountain and the gorge means that you are confronted every single day of your life with a level of scale that nothing that human beings have ever produced or ever will produce would ever be able to compete with it.
Well, this is like why, like, my favorite animals are elephants and whales, because that's definitely a whale. That's definitely an elephant. It can't pretend to be anything else. This is why I love Richard Pryor. He can't help but be Richard Pryor. Can't help but be himself. He's not able to fake it. He can't do it.
And they are so big that they are not concerned with human beings.
It doesn't have anything to do. It's like, what does it have anything to do with me? Yeah, like the mountain is just mountaining, you know? Yeah.
I do think that America maybe was, like, built with the idea from the beginning that the hyperreality of this, the landscape of this beautiful country, sort of a measuring stick against what we would create here.
Oh, it's an ultimate hyperreal structure is Mount Rushmore.
Ooh.
Oh my God! It's like in Idaho, I want to say.
No, it's in South Dakota.
It's in South Dakota. It's like. And people have to travel to South Dakota to go
in the Black
see
Hills, yeah.
This mountain that we reshaped with a bunch of fucking slave owners.
And one non.
And one non-slave owner. That's true. Yeah, like the act of modifying a mountain to depict presidents of the United States is so diabolical and hyperreal. It is sort of difficult to overstate.
Yeah, and it's definitely, impious, disrespectful to God, right?
Yeah.
The kind of hubris. I mean, it's like a literal version of the Tower of Babel, right? It's like you're going to take the thing that in not just the Bible, but in the Quran and everything, a mountain, the thing that stands in human literary tradition for the thing that human beings cannot intervene with. And you intervened in it.
Right. It's like that person who carved their name on like the world's oldest tree. Like,
Or when Chairface Chippendale, tried to write on the surface of the moon with a big laser.
that's sacrilegious. It's profane is what it is. It's profane.
Yeah, it is. And, but like the hyperreal is profane.
Yeah.
Because we are attempting to operate on the scale of God. But it was invented as a way of human beings literalizing God on earth. Right? If we say that these religious things were the beginning of the hyperreal in human life, then the hyperreal was both the Tower of Babel, right? We can conquer and kill God, but also, the hyperreal is all we got.
Yeah.
Right? It's the only way we have of dealing with the whole idea of there being something on the scale of God.
Yeah. Can I ask what everyone's favorite hyperreality is?
No, but you start.
Okay, my favorite hyperreality is the beach. I love going to the beach because it's designed in such a way that like you can sit on it and there's like things in place that are established for individuals going to the beach, but that was once just like a regular thing of land with the water there. There weren't like these little like things in place, like a little restaurant or like, lifeguards or whatever. We put those there so that you could enjoy this space better. But it is still a hyperreality, but I think I like it. Yeah.
Yeah, it's entirely artificial, more than any person could ever comprehend or consume on their own.
There's a fake lake or a fake beach in Zion, Illinois that I remember going to when I was a kid, and I had a total blast. It was so much fun. Yeah.
I think my favorite is the Art Institute of Chicago.
Ooh, great answer.
I specifically really like that statue of Shiva dancing.
Oh, the picture. Yeah. Yeah.
I think that it's not about physical scale when you go there and you're incredibly impressed or you're knocked out by the things that you encounter when you're in that building. It's conversely the minute detail and the precision of the composition.
Right, like those mini rooms at the Met.
The miniature rooms are
Love
a perfect
those.
example of that. Hyper real and yet so small.
This is a thing, like, I remember there was little Russian Fabergé eggs from the Tsarist era, and I saw them and I was like, God, as a hater of monarchy, but a lover of beautiful little objects, I am so conflicted right now. I'm like, oh God, I love the little egg. It's so beautiful.
Art museums are a great example of this because they are both, like too big for anybody to actually consume, right? Like the Louvre is famously too big to go see it all in one day. The Met is the same in New York, right? There are museums like this all over, right? Too big for you to fit into your brain. But then inevitably what happens is because they are institutions that become a part of your life, you go there and then it just becomes like this place that you have these fond memories of.
Like the mall. This is like the mall might seem incomprehensible at first, but once you go there enough times, like I've been to Old Orchard enough times, I know my way around,
Right, yeah. It attempts to be too big and then it gets conquered by human comprehension because fundamentally the human brain dwarfs any scale of anything that the human being can produce.
No, the human imagination is extraordinary. It's why sexuality is one of our biggest tools of resistance, I think. Yeah. So what about you, Taylor? What's your favorite hyperreality?
Maybe a hot take. My favorite hyperreality is church.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah.
The first one, old school.
Yeah, very old school.
We nailed it right away. There was no need to go any further, but they didn't ask me. There is a complete suspension of meaninglessness. Every single thing, every visual motif, every sound you
Ritual.
hear, every action that you take has a purpose that can be explained. That's
Pageantry.
not just a guy in a weird robe. That man can render water holy with his words.
My least favorite hyperreality is one time they had a Little Miss Iowa contest in Grinnell when I was in college, and my friend, for some reason, we thought it would be funny to go, and then we get there and we're like, this is actually horrible. Like a little girl beauty contest. There was this girl, she could barely walk, and she was painted up, and I was like, this is the worst. I was gonna throw up. It was it was so upsetting. So that's probably my least favorite hyperreality.
Oh, and then the additional hyperreality of my church is that we pretend to be Catholic but aren't actually.
Right. It's like American Anglicanism, right?
Yeah.
Fucking weird.
It's always got to be something with you guys.
No.
Yeah. Wait, which church do you go to again?
I attend the Episcopal Church of the Atonement in Edgewater. Haven't been recently because I've been doing this instead.
Yeah.
No, but this is like church. We're
Well, you were
thinking.
just saying that.
Yeah.
This is like the movies, and the movies is like church.
This entire conversation, for the past hour, when every time you people have been saying word church, I've been thinking back to a meme I saw on Tumblr 15 years ago. That was the song Hosier, take me to church, but it was take me to Snurch, Snail Church, and I've just been thinking about Snail Church this whole time.
You see, the snails also need hyperreality, because they move so damn slow.
Yeah.
You got to give them a lot to look at.
Take me to Snurch.
Thank you so much for listening to this week's episode of Virtue Signal, hosted by Dr. Eleanor Russell.
Thank you, everybody. Next week we are doing Euphoria with Jake Flores.